shutting up is like the hardest thing ever for me.
I know, so do it. All right, folks. I'm gonna build some Fused Claptons. Kind of my favorite easy build. Doesn't take a whole lot of time. Once you get good at it, and it takes a little bit of practice to get there, but my favorite build is, just for simplicity's sake, is a 26 gauge, 40 gauge Fused Clapton. Shameless plug, but Blue Vapes sell some wire. This is my 26 gauge, and I pretty well always, like 99% of the time, I'm using the stainless steel 316L. Now stainless steel is good for wattage or for temp control, so it's nice and versatile. And the other thing that I find too is I don't get like a metallic, metal-y type taste from stainless steel. So once I found or discovered stainless steel, I have never looked back. It's also a little bit lower on the resistance scale, so if you're looking to get kind of a higher ohm, higher resistance builds, then maybe stainless steel wouldn't be for you unless you have, you know, a larger size RDA. But without further ado, I'm gonna I got the camera set up so that you can kind of see my chuck that I've built for building coils, and I do make, you know, a 4-foot section, so you guys should be able to see it for the most part. I'm hoping that the motor here isn't gonna like vibrate and knock my camera off, but see if I can explain kind of my easiest method for building some Fused Claptons. Fused Claptons are a parallel, so you have two wires in parallel, and then you wrap it with something else. The reason you call it Claptons is, you know, like a guitar string, like Eric Clapton, that sort of thing. I'm sure you guys have heard most of that, but probably the most difficult part of building these style of coils is just making sure that you get both of those wires nice and parallel, that you get a fair amount of tension without too much tension. Too much tension and your swivels are going to bind up on you. I do use a couple of, I actually have 3 different rollerball swivels on the end over here. And I should be using probably like a 3-in-1 oil, but I just discovered the other day that olive oil works pretty good too. Lubricates them fairly well so that we can spin at high speeds. This little motor that I have set up, I've got a potentiometer on the table that's built in, and you can use just a regular drill. Something with a little bit of a variable speed and a careful trigger finger will help. But this little guy I can control like so. I can kind of go nice and slow and take your time. And when you're first learning how to build coils, don't expect to hammer on that drill and do it first time. Some people have that skill. I certainly didn't. Between the wife and I, we derived a way that would work fairly well, but after lots of struggling and screwing around. So I'm hoping that this video will help you to have a better understanding of how to build it. And having reverse helps too, because on a regular Fused Clapton you can mess up and then turn it in reverse, pull that back, pull that Clapton wire back off, and try again. So there is some more basic coils. You can just start out with regular Claptons, or even just try your hand at some micro or macro coils, you know, a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, that sort of thing. But when you get your wire, 9 times out of 10, it's going to have a curl to it, probably 10 times out of 10. The best way I've found to straighten your wires so that you can get them nice and parallel is to grab a hold with a pair of pliers and stretch your length. Start with like 10-12 inches. You should get a couple of coils out of that. I do build commercially for Blue Vapes, so what I'll do is I'll kind of eyeball and then just pull some tension into it until you feel it just start to stretch just a little bit, and now I've got like deadly straight wire. And then I'm going to double that over, so I'm guesstimating, but I'll grab the wire again, flip this other leg behind me, If you're only doing 10 or 12 inches, it'd be a little bit easier to deal with. But then I'm going to make that stretch again. So I'll come all the way over to my swivels and get kind of close to where my drill chuck is, and stretch again, and then cut it. You can get precise and actually measure it and stuff, but this is what has been working good for me. And this method, whatever I'm doing here, it may work well for you, it may not. So I'm just threading the 26 gauge through my swivels, and I'll come back to my chuck. So the loop just goes through my swivel, and now I've got two wires that are nicely parallel. I overdo it a little bit just so that I don't come up short. And if we're talking about the grand scheme of things, this little bit of waste, a couple of wires that are only a couple inches long, maybe cost you a few cents. I'd rather have a little bit too much than not enough. So there's different ways to get it into your chuck too. I've got kind of a custom made chuck here, so it's nice and flat. But if you were using just a regular drill with a three jaw chuck, it might be a good idea to just put a little L bend on it. I don't know if you can see. I just got a 90-degree bend on there. And then you can put it into your drill chuck, keep them nice and parallel, crank it down nice and tight. In my case, I can keep it straight. There's my ratchet. Let's see if I can't snap this screw on camera, that'd be fun. And of course, if you're using a drill at home, do whatever makes most sense. Some people go the drill on their left. I find it's easiest to have the drill on my left, and I can do all my work with my right hand. I'm right-handed, so I find that a lot of right-handed people seem to like to do it the opposite way around, where the drill is on their right, and they can use their right hand for their trigger finger and control it a little bit better. But that's another reason that I've kind of developed this motor and this setup. So here's my potentiometer, so I can turn it faster or slower, and then I've got a switch here that goes forward and reverse. So not everybody's going to have that. So you see how it's got a little bit of a wobble to it, and it just means that I'm not quite straight on the chuck. Having things perfect is not super essential, but it definitely helps. If it starts waving like that up and down, then there's a better chance that your Clapton wire is going to jump all over the place. So that's a little straighter. But at this point, I like to do a 2640 40 gauge stainless steel. Now for your beginner, your average beginner and stuff, I think it's a little bit easier to go with, say, a 36 gauge. I don't even know if you can see this on camera. It's really fine. It's like, I believe 40 gauge is thinner than the thickness of a human hair. So it's a little bit difficult to work with, but if you take your time, it's not impossible. But for beginners, it might be easier to start with. 26 gauge is a great way to start. It's a fairly rigid wire. It's not, it's a little bit forgiving. 28 gauge and 30 gauge, that's when things get a little bit more delicate and you have to take your time. But a 40 gauge wrap on a 26 is a little bit difficult for me when I started. I would probably rather have started out with a 36 or even a 34, just because it's got a little bit more rigidity, it's a little bit more forgiving, and you can see it better. But with using a drill at home, you can just kind of jam that 40 gauge wire into the drill chuck and kind of get a couple of twists on there to bind it, to get it started. and then you're off to the races. And just go slow to start. I don't know how well you guys will be able to see this, but I'm trying to just walk you through it slowly. And what you're looking for is about a 90-degree angle. So your wire should come off perpendicular, is that the right word? Perpendicular to your two fused Claptons. And then just go slow and watch. With 40 gauge, again, it's a little bit tough to see it, but what you're looking for is kind of the shine of the wire. And once you start doing this, you'll get used to it. And then you can start going a little bit faster. But speed is not the end game here. A good quality, clean tasting build is important. So if you take your time and all of your wraps are nice and pretty and aligned and everything looks uniform, you're going to get a much better vape out of it. So I'm going to whip this off real quick. Not sure how much of it you're going to be able to see on camera. Of course the camera's dying now too. I think you can see it creeping along there. Most drills are doing about, I don't know, somewhere between, oh, I'm slipping. Well, it's a good opportunity to grab a hold of this camera and get in there close and personal. So that's kind of the angle that you're looking for. The 90-degree right there. And if we get in close and personal, I'll put my other lens on here. And I've mentioned this before. I am not a professional. So you're gonna see follies. Weird shit like this. Bear with me. Let's see if we can make this work. See how your parallels are nice and tight together, and your 40 gauge, which even with the macro lens on video is a little bit tough for me to grab, especially this light behind me. But it's all nice and straight. Each wrap is next to the next. You know what I mean? Okay, so anyways, I think you guys are getting a general idea. See if I can do this without the phone slipping off here. Look at that. Ran out of wire. So anyhow, that is the makings. And look, I build these things all day, every day, and I still fuck shit up. But it's not my fault. I ran out of wire. This is a good example. So even if you do run out, I'm going to finish this little tail off. Even if you do run out of wire, it's not the end of the world. You just have to find a way to affix another piece of 40 gauge or whatever it is that you're using to the wire so that you can continue. And I just kind of split the wire like that. I've got another roll of 38 gauge just for the interest of this video. Slip it right in between those two wires so that it's got something to grab onto, and then I'll hand turn this a little bit just to get it started. With a drill at home, of course, you could just slowly turn it just to catch it, and then you're going again. All right, so that's how you're going to build your fused Claptons. Take some more video of after it's done, and take some pictures and stuff so that you guys can kind of see up close and personal what it looks like. Before I sign off, why don't I'm going to do like I said. I'm going to take some pictures, get a little more comprehensive up-close shots, and let me know what you guys think. If you have questions or whatever, this is a good place to ask it. I'm going to keep doing these until they make sense, until they look a little better. No pro, right? Just trying to help. And Instagram. We've also got our website at www.bluevapes.ca. Follow us. We do all kinds of stuff. We do coil videos, and last night we were cooking a pizza on the new clay brick oven outside. So that's kind of one of my new little hobbies. Who doesn't like pizza, right? So, anyways, goodbye for now.